That mindset of this is a business and all businesses require some automation is actually the game changer. When you can shift from I'm an author struggling to make things happen to I'm a business that needs to organize, then it really changes the game. Think about Starbucks. There's an expectation of I show up, I get what I leave. And authors need to remember readers want to show up, get what they want, and leave. And you have an automation for all of that in the background. So when you can make that mental switch, it changes the game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pint and Portal Author Podcast. I am so thrilled for the conversation you are about to hear today. Today, I am speaking with Katie Cross. She is a YA fantasy author, as you will hear during our conversation, but she is also a master of direct sales. I know there has been a lot of talk lately about diversifying from one of the bigger retailers out there and ensuring that your books can reach more readers through different platforms. Katie came to this realization about 10 years ago, and ever since then, she has been selling directly from her own website to reach her readers and make her successful author career. Like I say in the interview, she was doing direct sales before direct sales was cool. It's been a hot topic lately, and there's been a lot going on in the industry to make authors rethink their strategy about where they sell and who they sell to. And I'm going to talk to Katie about the benefits of selling direct from your website, but we're also going to get into some of the nitty-gritty details of how to make it work and why direct selling might actually be better for you and the conversations that you have with your readers. And let me tell you that the conversation I had with Katie absolutely changed my outlook on direct selling and how to approach it. We're going to discuss how to find readers and gain their trust into buying from your website, how to work with them in order for them to keep coming back and buying as their first choice instead of an afterthought. As you'll hear in our conversation, Katie is not exclusively selling from her website, but there are items that she only sells on her website, and fans keep coming back for more. This is going to be a great episode. You're going to learn a lot, and some parts get heavier than others, but stick with it because there is a wealth of information here. No matter if you are just starting out and considering setting up your own website and direct selling platform, or if you've been doing this for a while and wondering why the sales aren't flowing the way you'd like them to. It's a great conversation. I absolutely loved chatting with Katie. I could have chatted with her for another couple of hours. So stick around and let's get into the conversation. But first, I want to chat to you quickly about my own Kickstarter. If you are listening to this episode when it goes live, my Kickstarter will be coming out next week. April 28th, you will be able to grab the special edition of my cozy fantasy Flower and Forge. It is a fun adventure if you enjoy books like The Hobbit and The Wizard of Oz. With a side order of pastry, you are going to love Flower and Forge. It is part of my Pint and Portal multiverse, which includes The Bartender Between Worlds and The Greatest Pub in the Multiverse, but you absolutely do not have to read those first two books to enjoy this one because it is a standalone story and it actually takes place 40 years before either of those two books. As you can see here, if you're watching the video, it's got a shiny gold foil cover, it's got a jacket, it's got a gold foil case, it's got colored illustrations and sprayed edges. If you want to learn more about it, please go and head to the link in my bio or search for Flower and Forge on Kickstarter and you will find it there. And that is flour like the baking ingredient, not like the pretty flower. You're not going to want to miss it. I've got all sorts of goodies at all sorts of price points and tiers and some amazing stretch goals that you're not going to want to miss. So please check it out and thank you for supporting me and supporting the show to continue to bring you amazing conversations with authors who have built successful author careers so you can build one too. Now let's get on with the conversation. Welcome once again to the Pint and Portal Author Podcast. I am so excited for my guest here today. We have the person who was doing direct sales before direct sales was cool. Katie Cross is here with me today, and we're going to be talking all about how you can use direct sales in your author business, what it's all about, and what she does to make it work for her. So welcome here today, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited.
Yeah, me too. I've been really excited to chat with you. I've heard you on a number of other podcasts, I think we might have even met at Author Nation a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure I saw one of your
Oh, cool.
presentations, but it was in passing, and I didn't realize it until I was looking up another one of your interviews. I was like, I think we've met before, but it would have been brief. It would have been after a presentation. So yeah. So for those of our listeners who may not know who you are, can you just give us a little bit of a brief history of your author journey and what led you to direct sales to begin with?
Yeah. So my name is Katie Cross. I write a lot of books. I have three main genres that I write under, the biggest of which is young adult fantasy. I'm most known for my YA fantasy titles. I've launched into romantasy and clean contemporary romance also. So I have something like 90 titles with short stories, novellas, novels. Yeah, it's really fun across, I think, almost 10 series now. So it's been
Wow.
great.
Yeah.
I started publishing in 2014. 2014 was
Wow.
my
Yeah.
first book came out, so it's 12 years this year, which is very exciting.
Mhm.
And I started doing direct sales at the end of 2019 into 2020, and that was something I stumbled onto. I initially started the setup for it with the ammo program with Steve Piper
Okay.
and set it up around that and have been doing it ever since because I love the direct to consumer model. I love where the feedback for the company is coming directly from my client, like my customer.
What made you decide to begin with, I guess, to go into direct sales? In 2019, it wasn't a very popular thing for indie authors to be doing. What, I guess, led you to it at that point?
I think what the initial mindset that led to it is something a lot of people these days relate to. I had over 25 novels at that time, and I just wasn't making as much money as I felt they deserved. They were really
Mhm.
well received. I just was so frustrated by it, and I hated this idea that I had to go through another company in order to access the consumer, right? Like I had to go to
Right.
Amazon and then they held all the information. If I tried ads, they weren't really working. And in general, I think I was just frustrated by what I felt was just a lack of growth. Like nothing was happening in my
Right. Okay.
career, and I wanted to keep writing, but I needed more money. And I stumbled into one of the ads that talked about this direct sales thing. And I was already trying that on the side with a few other companies. Like Findaway Voices used to have a program where you could sell audiobooks direct through them. You had like a direct store, and I had done that, and that was really fun. I was working with the
Okay.
CEO at the time, and
Oh,
I
cool.
really loved that. So that already kind of whetted my
Yeah.
appetite, and I decided I was like, this is the way because most of
Mhm.
my learning about being an entrepreneur was outside of publishing. I was looking at women-led businesses and I mean any business outside of publishing, and none of them had the constraints that I did in the same way. And so I wanted a
Right.
model that put me on a path outside of the publishing world so that I could look at different markets and kind of pivot if I wanted,
Okay.
basically.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think anything whets a person's appetite for direct sales like audiobooks because the difference in your royalty is insane. I like the first few direct sales I had for my audiobooks, I'm like, what am I even doing like on other platforms? Because I mean, through Audible you get like maybe a buck or two, but you can sell it direct for cheaper and make 5 or 6 times the amount per sale, which is it's crazy.
And your audiobooks are
Yeah.
priced even lower than a lot of direct authors I see. I saw one of your audiobooks was $5, and I was like, "That's a great way to intro an audiobook listener in." Because and even then, you're
Yeah.
making probably like twice what you're getting on Audible, right?
At least, yeah.
So,
And
you
that's
went all
that
the
is
way
a sale
around.
price right now, right? So, like, I do have them on sale right now. They're normally on my website, 9.99 is what I price them for. That means compared to a 15 or what are credits these days, 12.99. I mean, the reader's still getting a deal, right? And I'm getting paid way more.
It's a win, and then you
Yeah.
have their email, which is the real key. I have, 5 audiobooks that are exclusive to Audible. They signed for the audio rights last year, and they're charging up to $29.98 per title à la carte, and I was like, "That is criminal."
Yeah.
That is criminal. It's so crazy to me. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it's wild, really wild.
It is. Yeah, you know what? So what I'm 2019, what platform were you starting with back then when you were starting to sell on your website? Is it um, something similar to what we have now, or have you tried a few different platforms?
No, it's the same. Yeah, I started on Shopify and I've been on
Okay,
Shopify ever since. I know
nice.
there's a lot more options now, but it works. I didn't see any need to change it. It's such a big company and all the apps and options that they have just make it really easy.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, I know the price point of Shopify is sometimes a barrier for some people when they get started.
A lot of people that have a hard time paying what Shopify charges out. It was then not what it is now, basically. I feel like it was
Yeah,
probably a little smaller barrier to entry in 2019. But if you go into it with a strategy and a plan, you can sort of like set goals to get that upfront cash to pay out Shopify right away, right? So whatever
right.
it is, okay, I think I pay like 150 a month on Shopify with all the apps and stuff I use.
With the plugins and that, yeah.
Right. Like you can, from the get go, have a plan to turn that fresh cash right back to Shopify. So even though you're maybe not pulling a profit, you're reinvesting to get a cyclical profit in the end, right? So
Right.
it's just the way you think about starting it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place, I guess, for us to unpack. Because you talked about a strategy, and I think because authors will often think, okay, I have my website, I've got my books loaded onto it. Oh, that was a lot of work. Okay, now where am I? What's happening? Nothing's happening. Why am I not selling? So, what do you suggest for authors who are, looking to use direct sales as a platform? How do they approach it? What kind of strategy do I need?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, I think my opinion will be my own. It may be different from what other people are saying. And
Of
there might
course.
be like coaches and experts that have a different opinion. But if I were in that situation, I would not launch a direct sales store unless I had a launch schedule. So I was actively like, I have 3 books coming out in the next 2 years or 3 months or whatever you have, so that there is active momentum for people to go buy from your store soon. Right. So there's that. Number two, if you don't necessarily have frequent launches that are going to help pay for that Shopify store, if you're just starting out, I would at least make sure you have an email list of 500-ish people. I'm just throwing that number out, but I want at least enough people that you can expect industry standard conversion. So if industry
Okay.
standard open rate is 25% and the industry standard click rate is 1 to 2%, you have 500 people, you have a moderate chance of getting people to convert, right? So then you at
Right.
least get a couple sales going to that website.
Right. Yep.
If you're not going to have active launches, right? You want something to offer. I think what people don't take into account with direct sales, if they're going to be paying for the website, is that products drive selling. You have to have new products in order to drive new sales. So if you don't
Right.
have a launch or a strategy to offer new products and incentives, then your Shopify store may sit there unless you're able to do paid advertising. So either
Okay.
way, your store has to have a flow of traffic, whether that's new launches or paid advertising. Without that, it will stagnate.
Right. So yeah, so I think, so the difference being, from Amazon or another platform is you've got to bring your own audience. You don't have an audience actively looking for author websites to purchase books from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually not. Yeah.
Usually not.
I'd
Yes,
love
it's
it if
not.
they.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? I mean, I think some authors do, and I don't know if some fans will do it because my first instinct now is to be like, well, if I'm going to buy this for $5 or whatever on Amazon, I'm going to go look to see if I can support them on their website because I know that they're making so much more, right? So I think it happens, but yeah,
I think we are the subset that does that for the most part. There are, of
yes,
course, unicorn readers there that would take that initiative, but because this is the life we live, we do that. So that is not an assumption I would lean on if I was looking at like direct sell. Yeah, like it'd be great if there were more of them, but there aren't. So we have to assume that most people are just doing what you tell them to do when you have a product for them to do. So that's why it's
right.
important if you have a launch schedule coming up, a direct sales store could be a point of leverage for you because you could then say, hey, my book is launching, go buy it right here. And you just share your link and you start building that customer base up on your own, but they have to have something to buy.
Right, right, for sure. Yeah, and I think, and I was going to circle back to that too, because you talked about having that momentum and having a few releases. Now, I mean, could you even have, I mean, if an author has, let's say, a backlist, they could probably enact a similar strategy, even though those books are already out, if they're pointing people to that first book, right? And now they've got more opportunity for people to come back and buy the next one. Right? Like this isn't necessarily something that's going to work for an author with one book out or one book and no plans for, I guess, ongoing books.
Yeah,
Is that
it's a hard
a safe
goal
assumption, or is that,
without.
or should it be new product?
No, I think you're right. It's a hard model if you have few products, basically, because you don't really have anything to offer. Authors with backlists just have a better advantage because they have product. Whether they have an audience that wants that product is in question. Because if you have an entire backlist books and your current email list has bought those books and all of a sudden you want to go direct, they may or may not be a high leverage asset for that because they've already purchased those books elsewhere. So they're not
Right.
trained to buy from you. So what I would say in that situation, if you came to me and said, I've got 20 novels in a backlist and I really want to start direct sales because I want more control, whatever reason you're doing it, then I would say, great, let's set all those 20 books up for success. But you have to just assume that those buyers are on retailers and move forward with low expectations of people buying from your website as a new audience. Like you have to really start creating a totally different audience because the expectations are different. And then if anyone from your list buys, what a fun surprise. But I would think of them buying totally different things because the training is different, right? Like they've
Yeah.
been trained to buy from the retailer versus they've been trained to buy from you. And it's a different
Right.
experience. So
Yeah.
you definitely
Okay.
stay to make more money because what you can do with existing product, they're all assets.
Yes.
Let's say you have 20 novels, you reinvigorate those assets a little bit. So you would say, I'm going to bundle them and drop the price. So I have 4 books that would normally be $20. We're going to offer a one-time 4-book bundle for $10 and then have my friends share it on the email list. We're going to put it on social media. If you can do paid ads, you could try it, just kind of find different ways to do it and see if the money rolls in and test your
Right.
audience that way. So you have
Yeah.
more assets to work with versus someone who only has one. You have one asset to sell, and that's a really hard model. So I think direct sales usually needs at least a full series or like 3 to 7 books to really see traction with and an active launch schedule too, right? Like not just the assets, but
Right.
you need active launch schedule moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I want to dig deep into that, but I do have a question. I just want to make sure, like, so when you're talking about having, let's go back to, because you said 3 launches, 3 releases coming up. Are you talking about releasing exclusively on your direct store? Like, do you only sell on your direct store or do you have those books on other retailers as well?
Great question. I have a mix of both. Most of my novels are going to be available everywhere. I have my romantasy is KU only. So I launch it, I sell it on my store, and then they get it early. And then from the launch day, it's only on KU. So kind
Okay.
of so I can get both the best worlds there. It
Great.
definitely cannibalizes success of the launch on KU, but I don't care because I have this existing direct sales audience to satisfy. I also have bundles, short stories, and novellas that you cannot buy on the retailer that I use as leverage points for my novels. So the novels that are on the retailers get a sneak peek or excerpt of a high leverage point in this short story collection. They can only buy on my website. And I see it happen almost every day, at least every couple times a week, where brand new readers come in. They're like, oh, like I wanted this really high value short story that's only available on your website, and they buy it. And then I have their email. And some of them then go forward and buy from my website, or they just look around, like who knows what they're going to do. So I do both. I like the wide visibility of the novels, and then I bring them in with high value novellas and short stories.
Okay. Yeah, and that's because I didn't even realize that because my assumption is that you're on your direct store as just one of many places that people can find you. And if they happen to get to your direct store, then great because you're making more from it. But you don't want to close off other avenues for potential buyers either. But what you're saying though is that you have some content on that's wide on everything, and then you have some that's just on your website and you're directing your readers from that wide content to your website so that one, you capture their email address, and two, you're getting them used to buying direct from you. So now,
Absolutely.
so when you're capturing their email address, and I kind of know the answer to this question, but for those who might not, you're not talking about reader magnets. You're not talking about coming to your website and signing up for a free story to get on your newsletter. You're talking about actually they have to buy it. Maybe it's a reduced rate or whatever, but you're still getting their email address regardless.
Yeah. So let me give you my hottest example that right now. So I launched the 12th book in a series a month or so ago. And at the beginning of the story, I left a note and I said, there is a short story titled The Volare that you may want to read before you go into this novel. It's not necessary, but it would give you a fun approach to like comprehend what happens here. And you can buy that right here. And I just have a link and it goes to my website. And that's really all I say. Like, I take away the urgency. Like, you don't have to buy this, but you're 12 books
But
in.
you
You
can.
love this world. Like you
Right.
want to know, you love the Volare, right? Like you love the sound of the
Yeah.
rugs, so you want this, but like high value, right? So that's the most important thing. This is
Yes.
so high value to them. So what happened is I launched that book, and then I got a slew of orders again to this day. We're at like 6, almost 8 weeks out, that are for that short story. As people start the book, they see it, they go, they buy it, and it's like first time buyers across the way. So like that kind of thing. There's another short story that at the end of book 7 in the same series sort of completes a romantic arc that
Okay.
you don't have to see happen, but everyone wants to see.
It's a
Like
romantasy. People are going to
everyone.
want to read that. Yes. Yeah.
It's super high value, and so that one, like, even though I launched it 3 years ago, to this day is selling weekly because people
Wow.
want that short story, so
Yeah.
that means they're not buying a lead magnet, they're buying a satisfying short story that they're excited about, but then I get their email, and then I have email automation that pulls them into a series where they can get introduced to my website and trained to understand why I sell this way, kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk about the automations, but first I just want to ask quickly. You mentioned having the link at the start of the book for one for that to the novella, but and then you have one at the end of a different book to a short story. Do you find that are you capturing different readers? Are you capturing them? Are you just trying to capture them at different points in that process? Like, is there what kind of psychology, I guess, is there behind that? Because I've often wondered, because I've seen people link it at the beginning, and and my inclination is to put it at the end when they're already, they've read your story and liked it. How do you find that that works, and what's kind of been the best for your readers, I guess?
It's 100% whatever creates the best experience for the reader. That's it. So the
Okay.
one at the back of the book, you wouldn't want at any other point except that one moment where you're like, the book is over. What happens? And then I'm like, hey, here's what happens. You can get it here. And for the one that started the book, I would want them to read it before they dive into the novel so that they have
Okay.
that background already. And that's the
Makes
only
sense.
really point that I have is whatever serves my
Okay.
reader best.
Right. So yeah, so it just kind of depends on what point of the story makes sense for them to read that kind of a side story, basically. And that makes sense because obviously, if it's a bonus epilogue or something or a short story that wouldn't make sense until the end, you're not going to put it until the end,
Right.
obviously. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So it's
Yes.
not, yeah. So there's not like you've seen, or maybe you do, but like, is there a difference in conversion that you've seen from that, or is it just you're really targeting them at the right time, so it kind of is about the same.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the problem is there's such a disparity in time and numbers sold because I just launched like 6 to 8 weeks ago that I don't know that the data has really gathered yet. I mean, I could take how many book 7 have sold and how many of the follow-up, and then how many of book 12 and how many of the prequel story, and kinda look at the ratios. I haven't done that yet, because it really was just this idea of if you want to know more, like, here it is, and then it was a method to increase my average order value, but also to serve the reader. Like, I didn't write the Volare short story knowing I would preface book 12 with it, but as I wrote book 12, I was like, "We've got an opportunity to leverage this short story, so we're gonna put
Right.
that in and see what it does." And I've been really pleased with the results because, I've gotten people from the retailers that I never expected. So it is actually a completely different audience, which keeps things, like, fresh.
Right. Right. Cool. So and then I wanted to talk about one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you about is because I've heard other people talk about some of your strategies as far as automations and that sort of thing. And I know for myself, at least, I don't do this. And I think a lot of authors that have a website don't even realize that this is a thing that they can do. So can you talk to us just a little bit about what you're meaning when you're talking about bringing them in through these workflows? And then what does that look like from, let's say, a platform like Shopify? What does that actually look like for that experience?
Yeah. This is so fun. I love automation. It's my superpower. It's the best. So, if we're talking about, like, workflows and reader acquisition, what happens is I use Klaviyo as an email service provider. I used to use ActiveCampaign just in December and January. I moved to Klaviyo, so I'm still a Klaviyo newbie. But this is where the magic really happens because I have individual buckets that everyone goes into based on how they found my books. So we call them workflows in Klaviyo. In ActiveCampaign, they were automations. It's the same thing. Basically, let's say someone is reading book 7 and they are like, I really like want this story. They buy it. And as soon as that product with that SKU, the SKU is purchased, it triggers Klaviyo to say, hey, this person purchased it. Let's start a workflow that delivers emails and then sees if they want to subscribe to the list. Like, you bought this, but do you want to be on my email list kind of deal? Right. So we have one of those. We have a bucket or workflow where I just have a general page at the back of all of my novels that say, if you want updates, deals, bundles, whatever, just click this link. It's just a general subscribe link. There's one for fantasy, there's one for contemporary romance, there's one for romantasy. So we just have those. And then we have like individual flows or like my advertising funnels. Or if you go to my website and subscribe there, it's a separate flow or bucket. So I have all of these things working in the background all the time. So no matter how someone comes to me, they receive the right response based on how they came to me. And it's a tailored response for how I want to walk them into my company after that. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but some authors are familiar with that sort of process as far as, let's say, their regular newsletter goes. Someone signs up for a reader magnet. They get this email based on what reader magnet they bought, and then they get, 2 or 3 more emails, and then they get dumped into the general pool. But this is this is a bit more automatic than that, and it's someone who's already bought something from you, right? Like, it's a similar kind of idea, right?
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
have both, right? So I have flows for high value people that have purchased from me already, flows for like warmer, like you have cold, warm, and hot, right? If hot have purchased, I have separate responses versus a warm one who's subscribed on their own but hasn't purchased from me versus cold where they receive something for free but haven't done anything. So there's the different buckets across that based on behavior. This is where
hmm,
automation gets super interesting is when you can automate based on behavior and you can really only automate based on behavior well if you have a store because and you have something like Klaviyo or Shopify that tracks behavior, right? So, and
right,
we don't have to go into this because it might be a little too much for this conversation, but you can create automations based on people who have added to cart but not purchased, who have purchased a series of books but not other ones. For example, I have a launch coming up in a couple weeks. So I have very segmented emails going out to people who have purchased books 1 through 3, which are launched, but not purchased book 4, and they're the only people under that purview that get that. So, I only mention that because you can automate to whatever
right.
depth you want, but it all works
Yeah.
in the background so that you're not spending so much time on it.
Right. And only the people who are going to be interested in that book, because book 4, that's kind of a targeted audience. You're going to want to have read the first 3 books first. You're not flooding their email with a book that they're not going to buy because they haven't read the first 3 necessarily, right? And yeah, and I don't mind getting into some of the nerdy details because, the premise of the show is really for, authors who are wanting more detail and they want, they really want to build success in their journey, right? So I think it's really good to know what's possible. These workflows are really set up for businesses. And, like I have, my day job is web design. I kind of realize that some of these flows exist in things like Shopify because you're retargeting customers, you're upselling, you're doing all this and this. But I think authors struggle a lot of times as seeing themselves as a business and thinking that these are tactics that they should be using.
That mindset of this is a business and all businesses require some automation is actually the game changer. When you can shift from I'm an author struggling to make things happen to I'm a business that needs to organize, then it really changes a game. Think about Starbucks, for example, or a coffee shop. They have so much automation. Like customers walk up to the desk, they order, they pay, it goes to the next person who's making the drinks, who then goes to the end and hands the cup over, right? And there's a person that's doing the food. Like it's all automated, and there's an expectation
Right.
of I show up, I get what I leave. And authors need to remember readers want to show up, get what they want, and leave. And you have an automation for all of that in the background. So
Yeah.
when you can make that mental switch, it changes the game.
For sure. Yeah, because I think the other thing too, you're talking about workflows and we're talking about, it's a bit technical and a lot of authors will be like, I don't know, that sounds like way too much work. um, and it probably is initially, right? I mean, well, it definitely is initially, but what would you say to someone who, was like, well, is that worthwhile? Like, am I going to do all this work? And like, what's the payoff? Is it worth it, I guess, is what someone's going to be wondering, I think, listening to this.
I can appreciate that, A, this is overwhelming even to me sometimes. I'm like, this is huge. I have to wrap my head around this and execute it, right? Like this can be a lot. But to if you're in a spot where you're like, is it worth it to automate? Then I would dive a little deeper into what you don't know about automation, right? And why it wouldn't work and why you're here as an author. Because this actually circles my last point. Like once you can change that mindset and realize you have to automate to run a good company, you're holding yourself back. So you're holding yourself back. So for those of you, if you're at this step, it is 100% worth it because automation is necessity for selling these days, especially if you're looking at a direct sales system. You just have to automate somehow or else you're never going to run it. So absolutely worth it. Hands down the best investment time you could set into it. And there's ways to do that without overwhelming yourself, right?
Right.
Or if you're overwhelmed, scaling back and making it a little more realistic. I dedicate 1 hour a day to marketing, 1 hour a day to business, and then I have like other buckets, but anything that falls outside that hour just goes to tomorrow. And that keeps
Right.
me from feeling overwhelmed as I automate or market or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's a great piece of advice because it really is so easy to get caught up and you're sitting at your computer for 5 hours and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't have 5 hours every day to do this.
Yes, for sure.
But you're taking out, but that's, in a lot of ways, that's why we need to do these sort of things because you said you had 90 books out. And I know like that's a lot of books, but even if you have, 15, like I've got 14 books out now. That's still a lot of books. You're at the point where, okay, if you're going to try to market that many books, it would really be in my best interest to have some sort of system that's working for me in the background so that I don't have to continually market each of them, right? And that's,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I would say, think about it this way. The term systems and automations may be too undefined right now. So one system or automation that I have that is I live or die by is someone buys an ebook from my store, book funnel receives a notice, they send the ebook,
yes,
audiobook, whatever. Someone buys a
right,
paperback, Lulu comes out, they just print and ship. Those are automations. Was
right.
it worth it to set up those automations? 1,000-fold, right? Like, that's the kind of automation we're talking about. Like, you can't manually deliver ebooks and audiobooks and paperback. It's crazy if you
Right.
wanna grow.
Yes.
If you wanna grow. So, I just
Yes.
wanted to define that.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. And I think some of those things that are, I mean, I've been doing direct sales for a year or two, let's say, and I use BookFunnel and I use Book Vault to do my print on demand fulfillment. So, but the same idea, someone buys it, I get an email saying that someone ordered it, but BookFunnel has already sent the ebook. I don't have to. Okay, where did I put that file? I have to email it out to what email address? I mean, that would be crazy. It's, even if you
Yeah.
don't have a lot of sales, that would be crazy. um,
Yeah, no one wants to
and
do that. No one wants to stay with that.
and I don't have to, I don't have to send address information to BookVault. They have it. They've got a plugin that integrates with Shopify. So, and well, that was the main reason I switched to Shopify was because of the BookVault integration. So, like, there are systems that maybe you don't even think of as an automation step, but it totally is.
Yeah, 100. And it's really
Yeah,
necessary. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and and the funny thing is, after I reached out to you the other day, I logged into my Shopify admin, and their new AI system or whatever they have came up with a prompt for me, and it was like, you could be taking advantage of automation steps, and I'm like, it's like, click here to see what you can do, and so my newsletter is hooked up to MailerLite, so it was like, we can't do this automatically, but here are the steps to go ahead. Like, I didn't ask it anything. It was like, here's what you should be doing to like retarget your customers. I was like, okay. So
Okay, boss.
I don't have to figure that out if it's going to walk me through it. I haven't done it yet. So I don't know. Sometimes those things aren't always accurate, but at least it's like, okay, there are ways to figure this stuff out if it seems overwhelming. Like, you don't have to like go in and figure it out yourself. You can Google it if anything else, right? So, um, yeah, yeah. So that's really cool. So I guess at what point would you say that an author should consider selling direct? Like, let's assume that they're not, well, should I do this or Kindle Unlimited? But at what point is it something that they really should be considering, whether it's a number of books or whether it's just they're tired of being beholden to a big bookstore? Like, at what point does it make sense for an author to really consider going down this road?
I would say if it serves your life and your goals and your reader. That's the bar for me because it's a different way of thinking. It's a different amount of work. There's a lot of growth in it, but growth requires organization and automation and thinking, right? So
Right.
if you are someone that maybe doesn't want this level of movement in your business, you don't want to have to like generate all these ideas, you don't want to have to work this hard at marketing, you don't want to have to figure stuff out. I don't think the pressure to do direct sales is fair. I think a lot of
Okay.
people put a lot of pressure on direct sales because the market has been swinging towards direct sales for a while.
Right.
And it's enabled indie authors to do it in a really big way. So I think a lot of people put pressure on direct sales. It just isn't necessary, right? Like there are
Right.
so many authors that never do direct sales and they will be just fine. But I
Right.
think direct sales should be serving you, your reader, and your company, like your goals and your life. Like if doing direct sales helps you live your best life, then absolutely let's talk about it. If you're doing it
Right.
because you feel pressure because people in the market are doing it, that's not right. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because there's always something else you could be doing, right? You're never going to be able to do
always.
everything that you possibly can because there's way too much and there are not enough hours in a day, no matter how much help you have. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I guess, so there is a separate marketing piece involved because you don't have, like we discussed at the beginning, you don't have people just browsing the internet looking for author sites to buy books from. But my thinking has kind of been in the last, year or so is that I'm having to market anyway to get people to Amazon to buy my books. It's only if,
Absolutely.
only if I have a really big sale or something like that, or let's say a book bub where I'm getting a lot of organic traffic on Amazon anyway. I know it's different depending on your genre. I know that like if you're, a romantasy author and you're in KU, maybe you're getting that organic traffic, but a lot of authors are not anyway without doing the marketing to get people there. So what I've wondered is that if I'm marketing to get people to my book anyway, why am I okay with 30% of my revenue when I could be getting 95% of my revenue, right? Um, and is that valid, do you think? Like, is there that big of a barrier in doing like directing readers to your site rather than Amazon, I guess?
I wouldn't call it a barrier. I would just call it
Hmm.
a different funnel, right?
Okay.
So doing a direct sales funnel is just it's an entirely different funnel. If you're
Hmm.
using it like in a good way, you can take the marketing practices of like sending traffic or whatever to Amazon and hope they buy your book. You could do that on your direct sales store. You could just send them to the product page on your store and then hope they buy it. But
Yeah.
it's all wasted money, right? So with direct sales, because it's yours, you can do what you want with it. Like you want to approach it a different way. So you just have to think about it differently.
Right.
But it certainly is valid that you stand a much higher chance of getting return on ad spend if you have a product that you then have an email list like for. So for example,
Right.
this week um I have a contemporary romance ad funnel that has been very stable. It's been doing great. So I haven't touched it. I'm like, "Oh, we'll just enjoy this while it's happening." And but the actual daily sales resulting from immediate ads. So when someone hits a landing page, they're like, "Yeah, I want this bundle," and they buy it right away. And none of those had happened in 4 days. And I was like, "All right, we'll write it through." Well, what happened is the email follow-up, the email automation that follows up people who get the first book for free but haven't bought the bundle, sold $50 worth. Right. So it's like, so all these bundles were firing in the background and a bunch of single book sales on my website were firing in the background also.
Okay.
So it was like, well, that's great because that email automation caught it. Those ads were then profitable versus
Okay.
I have a Kindle Unlimited app bundle that goes to my Romantasy and it just sends to the ad page, to the product page on Amazon. If nothing happens one day on that, just nothing happens. Like someone could click,
Right.
see it, and I'd never hear again and it's lost, like it's a lost lead,
Right.
but I accept that risk because it's a different funnel, it's a diversification, right? So
For
I
sure.
think you stand a higher chance for return on ad spend and customer recovery when you own that email list or that email address. That just is the
Right.
changer.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, that's another piece I think that authors don't always realize how valuable that is, right? Because someone reads my book on Amazon, I have no idea. Like you said, you'll never hear from them again, maybe. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, you don't know. But if they buy the book on my website, I have their email address. I have the opportunity to say, to email them directly when my next book comes out and said, hey, you liked book one or you bought book one, here's book two. And I do think, like for me at least, when I think about this process, I'm like, well, it is a lot of time to set up, but I do think that that information is so valuable to have, right? What do you find? I mean, I know I'm jumping around here quite a bit. What do you find to be, maybe let's take this approach. What's the most surprising to you as far as retargeting your readers who are buying that works to bring them back in a second time? Like, is there, like, because obviously like the book two, sending the book two email after they bought book one is yeah, that just makes sense. Is there something different that you've tried that you were surprised works as well as it does, and now you're never going back as the email that they always get?
I would love it. I would love it if that was true, because then there would be like a silver bullet. It's always a moving target. A couple weeks ago, I did a re-engagement campaign where I took people that subscribed to get my first book free and never bought anything over the last 8 weeks. And I was like, let's send a two first. So Wednesday they got, hey, just wanted to check in. Did you get this first book for free? And if you did, here's the bundle for 25, whatever. So I
Thanks. Yeah.
sent it Wednesday and I sent it Saturday. And like a couple people took it, right? So that was great to see that re-engagement.
Mhm.
And it was just a really direct, hey, you want it? But in my fantasy, I was doing a re-engagement and I was like, just did this really fun, like, it's spring in Montana. This is what I got going on. Hope you're doing well. By the way, here's that link if you didn't get the first book for free last time. And then
Right.
like we tripled our book signups for that day. The
Nice.
next day after I emailed, like tripled the book signups because people who had
Wow.
already downloaded the book download it again. Right. So you never, that's different though. It wasn't money. That was just getting them back into the book
Getting
and top of mind. And then,
right.
you hopefully see that later. So sometimes it's like a personal connection. Sometimes it's just a, hey, did you get this? Did you want this other thing? Like more of like a
Right.
straightforward, but the follow up is big. I think one consistent thing I've seen is bundles sell better than singles across the board. Like the
Right.
bundle is where the sale is. And that's true in physical sales and that's true in online marketing. And if you can bundle,
Yeah.
you will probably sell it better. So I don't offer book
Right.
two. I offer the bundle for the rest of the series.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I have a friend who bundles audiobooks, and I know she has said that that's been her biggest seller. But she'll sell the whole 10 book series in one, $100 deal or whatever that looks like. But because people, one, they want to read the whole series if they like the first book, especially. And two, I mean, it's a deal, right? They're getting, people love to get deals. So yeah, I like that. Yeah. I had another follow-up question for that. Oh, do you automate that process in a time sequence where if someone doesn't download that first book, you're sending a follow-up 6 months down the road saying, hey, you signed up for this book, you never downloaded it, or how closely do you monitor that?
I normally keep it within the last like 6 weeks of sign up. So they sign up, and over the course of like anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, probably not six, actually, now that I think about it, I have like an automation where based on behavior, if they have opened the previous email or if they have purchased XYZ products, they go to the right. If they haven't, they go to the left. And so I talk differently based on behavior. So I do that. But in general, I try not to email people if they haven't been active in my email list or on my store within 6 months. So I like all the emails that I send out, I say remove anyone unengaged for 6 months or more. Just you said that number, so I just threw that out there
Yeah.
too.
No,
So
no, it's good to know.
the re-engagement part, like where I was like, what I do is I do have those established, like it's been a week, we'll refollow up flows that the person goes into once they subscribe. But outside of that, every month I sit down and I look at the current month and the next month to figure out our marketing schedule. And I'll say, what do my readers need? Like, what have they heard from me last month? What could they use more of? Where can I connect versus where can I sell? And I map it out like fantasies this day, romantasies here. We're going to give 2 weeks. So I kind of map the whole picture out. And based on when I did a previous engagement campaign, then I'll do another one. So probably in like 4 to 6 weeks, I'll do another. Hey, did you get this? Do you want this bundle to anyone who hasn't purchased? So again, it only goes out based on their behavior. So as soon as someone purchases one of those bundles, they'll never get one of those emails again because it's all based on behavior.
Right. Yeah. And I like that you have the system set up that you're able to drill down to that they're not getting that same email again. But, everything is so targeted, which is great. You said something there that I do want to touch on, but can I ask, like, approximately, like, what kind of size of an email list do you have? Like, how many people are in this, somewhere in this workflow? And you don't tell me, like, but
Oh, no, I don't know. I love numbers.
Yeah.
So I think at my height, I had 100,000 emails. That's just so many emails. It's like a mortgage payment every month. I ended up whittling those
Right.
all the way down to something 30 or 40,000. And then I whittled that down to about 20,000. I had 16,000 readers on my list when I went from Active Campaign to Klaviyo. And what happened was I connected Klaviyo to my store, and I've had almost 50,000 orders on my Shopify store, and all of those were imported over as 40,000 contacts. So I ended
Wow.
up having, I'm telling you all this for a reason, but I ended
Oh
up
yeah.
having like 60,000 contacts in Klaviyo, and I was like, what happened? This is crazy. I had no idea I did that. Anyway, so I got this huge bill and I was like, what? It's supposed to be way smaller. Anyway, so I went through a very intensive like weeding process and I actually got all of those down to 5,000. So
Really?
right
Wow.
now I have a list. It's the smallest list I've had in a long time, but I have completely changed the way I look at email lists, but also the way I email. And that's why we're talking about I email solely based on behavior.
Right.
So
Okay.
because I have 5,000 people across 3 different genres, I have to be very targeted how I do it. So I actually send out a lot of emails, but they're extremely segmented based on behavior. So for example, I just produced these paperbacks that um, are a bunch of novellas put together. So it's called the novella. They're giant. There's 2 of them
Cool.
because there was 20 novellas. And the only people I'm going to send that to is people who have purchased these novellas in ebook or audio, or these originally had individual novella paperbacks for a while. Anyone who's purchased those are the only people that will get the notice, hey, we have this new paperback available. And they'll
Right.
put it on social media. So I end up sending too much smaller, but my open rates are like 88%. My
Wow.
lowest
Which is
is
fantastic.
65 last week. Right. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
So anyway, to answer your question, I've been all over the map, but I'm currently at about 5,000.
Right. Okay. So now, so I know people are thinking it. I'm thinking it. How much time are you spending creating emails? Like how much of this does this consume, or do you have? What kind of system do you use?
Yeah. So I have buckets for my time. I have an hour of what I call baseline marketing. And that's really important when I say baseline marketing, 1 hour a day. And that means every single tactic in that hour has to serve to increase my baseline income. So that's like email marketing. It's like if I'm changing my ads, if I'm doing a once a week data analysis on my ads, not if like every day I go through and just put my ad numbers out so I can see what they're doing. That doesn't count to my baseline hour. It's just like big ad funnel decisions, email marketing, anything that's production does not belong there. TikTok doesn't belong there. Social media doesn't belong there because that does not move baseline for me. So that one, it's like a sacred hour of only baseline like revenue increasing. Usually email falls in that. So when I
And so when
have
you say, and sorry, when you say baseline, I just want to clarify. So you're meaning that this is stuff that you know is going to move your bottom line. This is the stuff that
yes,
100% sells, and you know that this is what you can't not do.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
every action is going to bring money back into my company in that hour. And that's it, which is actually not, it's a lot harder than you think to justify that because my brain likes to be busy and productive, but busy and productive actually doesn't make any money, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
you have to be doing it. So I have 1 hour where I do that. And what I do is I map out my strategy for the month. I just have a spreadsheet with a month on it and I just fill in where I think things should go. And that takes about a day or like an hour, it takes like an hour to really map out what am I doing? Who am I talking to? Who needs what where? And then basically for 3 or 4 days after that, I'll just schedule emails. Sometimes it takes a week, so 5 hours. If I have to like create Google Forms or coordinate with other people or create images or create a product, right? Then that goes into production time and I can't do that email until after that production time is filled.
Okay.
So uh, probably like 5 hours a month on email, like
Really? That's
management and
it.
maintenance.
Wow.
Do that at the beginning of the month. Well, because that's all I'm focusing on in that week. And the strategy
Right.
is decided ahead of time. So I put all the decisions up front. And then after that, it's just execution. So it's
Okay.
easier. And then anyway, so it's imperfect, but it kind of goes at the beginning of the month that way. And then I just run it forward more if I need to. So this
Mhm.
month I'm scheduling into May and through like launch there. So I'm scheduling later in the month than I usually do. But
Right.
it's,
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, fair enough. But you still have developed the system where you're able to, I mean, target what's working and then, schedule out these are the tasks that I'm doing, but you're not executing them later in a different time segment in order to kind of keep your workflow at a manageable rate, which is incredible. Because when you were talking about the number of emails that you're sending out, I'm like, I would be doing nothing but writing up emails, which it feels like I'm doing anyway.
Get that.
Yeah. But the one thing I did want to circle back to was you were talking about looking ahead at what you had, or looking back at what you had just done in the previous month, and then from that kind of making decisions on what needed to go out in the upcoming month. And so it sounds like to me like you're sitting down with yourself and having a very high level executive meeting about your business, which as an author, I think a lot of authors are going to hear that and be like, what are you talking about? I'm just me. Why would I do that? So can you, because I think this is really important when people want to get to the next level from just, okay, I have a bunch of books and I'm hoping they sell, to I'm an author with an author business. How do I run this like an author business? Like, what does that planning session look like? And does that come naturally to you, or is that something you had to like discipline yourself into consistently doing?
That's a really fun question. So I actually do it every Monday. So sometimes Saturdays, but basically I have you can call it a CEO meeting, you can call it whatever you want, but basically I hold myself accountable every Monday to what the previous week did. And then I take that data and apply it to the next week. And I'll give you an example. So I have a spreadsheet and it just says Monday on it, right? Or Saturday. It used to be Saturday, but because I have kids, that's not working. So I've moved it to Monday. So it says Monday. And there's a series of columns with specific data that every Monday I fill out. And it's overall Shopify revenue, overall Amazon estimated revenue, combined revenue against ad spend. So I can see my return on ad spend for the week. And then I see all of the weeks before it and I look for trends. Like we didn't have a launch at the beginning of April. So our return on ad spend was immediately down because I wasn't launching a new product, but it wasn't ever below 1. So I'm like, oh, that's, so it's just like data I have in my head. And I go through just different tasks that I have to do. So it's both finances and email list. Look at what automations have produced money in the last week. So a post-purchase follow-up, an abandoned cart, a retailer one. Someone came in from the retailer and bought something like those short stories I was telling you about. So then I look at what flows are making money without me. Where's money coming into my company without me doing anything? And then I look at like email open rates and click rates. And so I have this idea in my head of, okay, these were overall sales. This was the top product, whatever. I kind of look at it every Monday. And then I can say, you know what? We're seeing the young adult fantasy ad funnel has almost no post-purchase follow-up. We need to like look at this long-term ad strategy, like whatever. Then I look at ads and then I go into my ads and I look at performance data across the week and across the maximum. So I look at what are my individual ads doing in different ad sets. I look at the individual ad sets to see if they're profitable. Anyway, so I do that. It takes me about an hour and 15 minutes, and it's super boring and I hate doing it, but I love doing it because I get the data, but I hate doing it. And so I like make an experience out of it. So I have like an audiobook that I love and my favorite drink and like whatever, so that I'll sit my butt in the chair and actually figure the data out. And then afterwards I'm like, I feel so much better. And so I do that. And then the end at the first or second of a month, I do the same thing for the previous month. I just look at what did April do against March, February, and January? And is there something that we need to do more of? Is there something we need to do less of? Like what's working, what isn't, or what's working, we do less of what isn't. So an example of that is I have some TikToks that have been steadily producing sales on Amazon. And it was a book I never expected to, well, I kind of was like, TikTok will love this, but they ended up loving it. So I was like, in my analysis on Monday, I was like, book 4 has outsold book 1 already in mid-month because of the TikTok. So
Wow.
that means every day we're going to have that book have a TikTok because it's working.
Right. Yeah,
And so
of
we've been doing
course.
that. The sales are, so it's that kind of data and then action.
That's so incredible. Like it really, like, I don't know why that is. I mean, I have talked to a lot of authors and this is the first time where I'm like, holy crap, that just makes total sense. Why are we not doing this as authors? Because you're running your author business like a business. And I mean, I have spent how long throwing spaghetti at a wall and, like, I guess this is working and you put up the TikTok, but I mean, to spend like, yeah, I mean, why am I not spending an hour at the end of the week figuring out what actually moved the needle and then doubling down on that, right? Because I mean, I feel like for me, I'm going to speak for me, and but I feel like a lot of authors are like this. I feel like I intrinsically have a sense of what's working. Like if I post a TikTok and I see some sales, I'm like, okay, well, that worked. But I mean, I'm not documenting that anywhere and I'm not reviewing it and saying, okay, well, this is the TikTok I need to reproduce. Or TikTok's not doing anything anymore, but hey, Reels are doing stuff. I should really be focusing more on Reels right now.
I think we're there, right? Is we can see something like, well, that's not working. I got to do something else. This is working. I do something else. And shiny squirrel syndrome here too, right? But I think that
Yes.
weekly meeting forces me to look at data and then say, well, it's not that TikTok isn't working. It's that that was a bad hook, and
Yes.
good hooks do work. So it's like you don't have to give up on one to start something else and then all that time is wasted. It forces you to look at it in a different way. And also because it's already on the spreadsheet, it's already established. I don't have to think about what data I'm pulling. I just have to fill out a spreadsheet. So there's no decisions in it. And then I just look at the data and I say, well, that's not what I was expecting. Or yeah, that was a completely normal week. We're gonna do the same thing next week, whatever.
Right. Yeah. And that was probably a bad, like, yeah, like don't give on TikTok because it didn't work this week. But, if
Yeah, no,
Reels
you're
are,
good. I got what you're saying.
that's not what I meant. But I had kind of this realization earlier this year, for myself on a more macro scale, not on a weekly scale, because I was like, what is working in my author business are Kickstarters. So why am I not doubling down on my Kickstarter? Why that should not be just another one piece of 20. If it's generating 80% of my revenue, it should be, a bigger focus than something that isn't generating anything. But drilling that down to a weekly level is, I mean, you're just running a business. Any business does that. Any good business, just looking at their numbers of what's making money this week, right? So, um,
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic
exactly.
advice. For an author listening who is considering direct sales, is really overwhelmed by everything we talked about today, because we did kind of skim over a lot of heavy in the weeds stuff that I know we just brushed the surface up. What would you say to an author, though, who is considering using direct sales? They're kind of sold on the idea. What's the first step that they should take in order to kind of head in a direction of either improving their current site or process or getting started? I realize those are going to be two different answers.
No, it's all good. Actually, they're not that different. I would say for people that are just getting started, they know they want the direct sales life. It's good for them. You're locked in. I would, number one, ask the question of how do I make the website serve the reader and in what way? And so maybe that's the layout and functionality. Maybe your readers have a really hard time on Amazon because it's overwhelming. So you work on a really minimalistic product page. Maybe it's just you have the products right up front. They can just grab it and go. Whatever your specific audience needs, you feel intrinsically like you mentioned they need. I would really focus on creating the experience for your customer through your direct sales website. I think that's a good way to start thinking about it. If you're locked in, you're ready to go. If you if you're new to it. Now, if you have a direct sales store and you're trying to improve it and you want better and you haven't done this yet, then I always recommend you go to your audience, no matter how small, and you just say, "Hey, what can I do better? What do you want more of?" Because I did this. I said to my audience, "Hey, what can I do better?" Like right down from my website is glitchy to don't like your launch pace. Like what can I do better? And I was just really honest and I asked in person, over email, and on Facebook, and I gave them anonymity so they didn't have to feel like I knew who was responding. And that completely changed the course of my career and how I ran my direct
Really?
sales store because the feedback I got was
Okay.
not what I expected. I was
Yeah.
like, "What?" That's crazy. One of the things that I heard that will stick with me forever is a bunch of my readers were like, "You don't really like audiobooks, do you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Well, you never launch an audio. You always just launch an ebook and sometimes there's paperback." And I was
Right.
like, "Well, audio is just really expensive. Like, I don't always produce an audio." They're like, "Yeah, but we never know if you're going to." And then when you do, it's just like random. So I was like, "Well, A, my communication is bad, and B, they feel like they're a maligned part of this audience." And that actually led
Interesting.
led me to led me to some other things. I mean, I became my own narrator, and I'm not saying people should do that, but it opened my eyes to this idea that I'm in charge of my reader experience. And by asking them what I could do better, I got the actual information on what they wanted and I
Right.
understood them better and I did everything. I changed all of it. and my conversions went up and my readers were happier. And I was able to build an audience that has stayed with me for years and years and years. Like some of these people have been with me for 10, 12 years since I started.
It's awesome.
Because I try to give them what they want. So if you have an
Yeah,
existing store, I would just consider approaching your current audience and asking, what can I do better? What can I do different?
great. That's great advice, I think. And a great place to end it. I feel like I could talk with you for hours because I have so many more questions. So we'll maybe have to have you back some other time. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. This was a episode loaded with information, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. It was so fun.
Yeah. And so I'll be sure to link all of your contact information in the show notes, your website and that sort of thing, so people can check out your books and maybe check out how the workflow on your website looks. Chat soon.